Okay, so this is Excel Chapter 3. This is part 3 of the video. We are working on the spreadsheet for Froyo to go, their 6-month financial projection. And where we left off is we were going to be talking about an if function. And an if function is based on making decisions. So in this project, you need to be able to vary the compensation according to how much revenue is generated in a particular month. So if I look at my Excel sheet, I want to know, what is my bonus? Okay, so I need to know that based on what the revenue or how much money was generated during that month. Now, according to the requirements, your employees will receive a bonus in any month where the revenue is greater than the revenue for the bonus. So down here we have put in that we are going to have our sales revenue for bonuses. They have to have at least $60,000 in sales before they will get their bonus. So would this person get a bonus? We could look at it. Their sales were $45,000. Do they get a bonus? They had to have $60,000. No, they don't get a bonus. But we would have to do that for each month, and as our numbers change, we would have to go back in and re-look at this and readjust our expenses and our bonuses. And what if we decide, you know what, that's not going to leave us with enough money, maybe we need to lower this and make our sales raise this and make our sales requirement $70,000. How would that affect our outcome? And so that's what we're going to do with this if function. Okay, so we're going to have to look at B9, which is where our bonus is. And we're going to have to calculate what the bonus is going to be depending on what is in the revenue and what is in the sales revenue for bonus. So if I go back to my chart here, oops. We are wanting to know, is sales revenue greater than or equal to $60,000? It's a simple yes or no question. If yes, it is greater than or equal to $60,000, then their bonus equals $5,000. If not, their bonus equals 0. This is something you do an if function every day in your life. So here's another if function that is not Excel based, but it's just based on common everyday things. The question is, are we out of milk? If yes, we are out of milk, what should we do? We should buy milk. If the answer is no, we are not out of milk, what should we do? Don't buy any milk. So you guys can figure this one out because this is a simple everyday formula, and that's exactly the same thing we're doing here. But instead of having to look and see was the sales revenue greater than $60,000, we want Excel to look and do it automatically for us. So I'm going to go back to my Excel worksheet. Oops. Here we are. And we're going to enter in the formula to do our bonus. It's really not as complicated as it sounds. So this is going to be what's called an if function. And there are 3 parts to an if function. The first part is the logical test. The logical test is, what are you asking? Okay? And in our simple everyday life equation, we were asking, are we out of milk? The next part is, what do we do if the value is true? Well, in that case, you would have bought milk. What do you do if the value is false? We would not have bought milk. So for our Excel formula, we're going to look at this and in our bonus section, and we're going to say, was our revenue, which is here, greater than $60,000? That's our logical test. That's what we want to know the answer to. If the answer is yes, give them a $5,000 bonus. If the answer is no, give them a $0 bonus. So to do an if function, you're going to come up here to your Insert Function button. Be sure you are clicked in cell B9 because that's where we want our answer to be. And I'm going to look for my if. It is in the section of logical, or you can just come up here and type in where it says type a description. You can just type in if, and go. Okay, here's my if function. Excel will walk you through this test very simply. So I'm just going to drag the box over so I can see everything I'm working with. What is my logical test? My test is this number, so I'm going to click on it, which is B4, greater than or equal to, so I'm going to put greater than or equal to, greater than or equal to what? 60,000. But what if we change the 60,000? So we're going to click here on B21. Okay, so that it always knows to use B21. Now, I'm thinking ahead. I'm going to be filling this across. Am I going to want my B4 to change for May? Yeah, I'll want that to change to C4, so that's great. But will I want B21 to change? Well, if I leave it the way it is, it would then use it would use this as relative, and it would change this to C21. Is there a number in cell C21? No, there's not. So that's not going to work for us. So we're going to have to make this absolute, and I can do that by adding a $sign in front of the B and a $sign in front of the 21, or I can press F4 on the top row of my keypad. Next is the value if true, and you can tell that it's going to tell you exactly what to do if you forget. Is the value that is returned if the logical test is true? So what do you want to happen if that is true? Well, I want them to get a $5,000 bonus. But I don't want to type in 5,000 because what if we change our bonus and we make it 6,000 or 4,000? So let's come down here and say that if that is true, we want you to display this number, B21. Now, should B21 be absolute or relative? Right, we need to make it absolute because we don't want it changing to C21 because then they don't get anything. So I'm going to use my F4 button to put the $signs. Oops, I lost it. Okay, and make sure I got that right. Oops, I did not. I accidentally switched to a different one, which should have been B20. I hope you guys have the right one there. Make sure you've got B20 for the result. And I knew that that was wrong because I can look over here and it's going to tell me the answer. And I knew that 60,000 is not what we want to give for a bonus. As an employee, that would be a nice bonus to receive, but that's not what we want to give. So then what are we going to get if it's false? Well, they get a big fat 0. So I'm going to type 0 in that answer. So I can already look and see for April, the logical test is false. And I'm just going to double check that on April so that I know that I've put in my formula right. Is that false? If I come over here and look, yep, 45,000 is smaller than 60,000. So that is false. And so if it was true, they would get a $5,000 bonus. If it's not true, they're going to get a $0 bonus. And so they are actually getting $0. So I'm going to go ahead and press OK to do that. So they got their $0 bonus. Now I'm going to double click in here so that you can see my true formula written this way. My formula actually says equal if, and then in parentheses, because we have to put all of our information in parentheses, my logical test is B4 greater than absolute B21. If it's true, then give them the number that's located in cell B20. And if it's false, give them a 0. So that's what we have done. I'm going to press escape to get out of my formula. Okay, on to the next one. We're going to enter the rest of the formulas in for April. And so we're going to start with the commission. For their commission, they are going to get their revenue, which is located in cell B4. So I'm going to type a formula. So I press what? Right, I press equal. Revenue times, which is my asterisk. And what is my commission rate? Down here is 30%, so I'm going to click in cell B22. Do I need to make either one of those absolute? Yes, I need to make B22 absolute because whenever I take it over to column C, I don't want it to change to column C. It has to remain column B. So I'm going to press my F4 button to add my $signs. My kiosk rental. How much is it going to cost me for my kiosk? Well, I have my kiosk rental down here is going to be 10% of my sales. So for a formula, I press equal, click on my revenue, times my kiosk rental rate of 10%. Does anything need to be absolute? Yep, I need to make that 10% absolute, so I'll press F4 and press enter. Marketing. Marketing is 5% of my revenue I expect to spend on marketing, so I'll press equal, click on my revenue, times, click on my marketing percentage, press F4, and enter. And equipment repair and maintenance, I have estimated is going to be, it's going to take 4% of my revenue every month to pay for equipment repair and maintenance. So equal, revenue, times, equipment repair and maintenance, and make that absolute. And press enter. Okay, so now I'm ready to find my total expenses. Total expenses is going to be easy. That's going to be my auto sum button. So on my home tab, I am in cell B14. I will press auto sum. Make sure that it is adding from cell B9 down through B13. Even though this bonus is 0, we want to make sure it's included, because whenever we drag this across, we want it to include it for each month. So press enter. And we now know our total expenses. The next thing we need to know is our total operating income. So operating income is going to be your gross margin minus your total expenses. So very simple formula. I'm in cell B16. I tell Excel I want to do a formula, so I press equal. Click on my gross margin in cell B6 minus my total expenses, which is in cell B14. Now, do I need to make either one of those absolute, or should they remain relative? If you said they should both be relative, you're correct, because whenever we fill this over, we want it to change and use both the numbers from column C. Here we want both of the columns, numbers from column D, and so on. So press enter. So we know now our operating income that we made $12,825 in April is what we will make if we have sales of $45,000 and if we leave our percentages down here the way they are. Okay. So just if you want to double check this one, you can press Control tilde, which is on your keyboard, the control, and then the button right beside your number 1, which will display all your formulas, and you can double check all your formulas against the page on page 157 in your textbook, or pause the video to make sure that yours matches mine. Okay, I'm going to go back to my regular view, so I'm going to press Control tilde or Control accent mark again. And then I'm ready to fill this over. So I'm going to highlight, beginning in cell B5, down through B16. Okay, remember when you highlight, you use the white plus sign and your top box may remain white. Then I'm going to use my fill handle, which I go to the bottom right-hand corner, and I'm going to fill that all the way over through September. Okay, and that should fill in all my information. You will notice it looks like I got a bonus in June. Well, that's true, because I have revenue of over $65,000. July, I got my bonus. So you can just kind of visually double check, make sure it looks right. Okay, moving on. This time we're going to do a nested. Let me check my time on my video here. Okay, we're not doing a nested if function, but you could do a nested if function, and it talks about that on page 159. And what a nested if function means is if this was nested, so I'm going to come back up here and double click on the formula so you can see it. If B4 was greater than B21, then I want you to look and see, is this bigger than this? If so, put this answer. So you could nest an if function inside of another if function inside of another if function. So for example, we could have 2 different levels of bonuses, and we could say, first of all, is our sales revenue greater than or equal to $60,000? If that answer is yes, I want you to see, is our sales revenue greater than equal to $75,000? If it's equal to more than $75,000, give them $6,500 for a bonus. If not, give them a $5,000 bonus. And if the first question, which is, was it bigger than $60,000, is false, go ahead and give them a 0. So, is it bigger than $60,000? If no, give